The kerosene lamp wick crackled with a spark, and Zoe Sue abruptly lifted her head from the sewing machine. A tingling numbness shot from the back of her neck to the top of her head, and in a daze, she caught her reflection in the glass window. 2 braids, a floral-patterned dacron shirt. This was unmistakably how she looked at 25. Outside, the sound of a Jeep engine cutting off echoed, followed by the heavy thud of military boots on the bluestone pavement. Causing ripples to tremble in the enamel cup, Zoe Sue rushed to the chest of drawers and tore open the calendar. September 12, 1983. The date circled in red ink stung her eyes. It was the 7th day after her miscarriage, and the night before Theo Wang would ask for a divorce. With a loud clang, the sheet metal door was pushed open. Theo Wang barged in, carrying the chill of the autumn night, specks of yellow sand from the training ground still clinging to the epaulets of his military uniform. He glanced at the chicken soup simmering on the stove, his brows furrowing into a deep frown. "I told you not to wait up for me." Zoe Sue clutched the sewing machine cover. Just like in her previous life, she had painstakingly watched over the pot, simmering the soup for 5 hours, only to be met with his cold, harsh words. How had she responded back then? "Oh," she had said, "drink it while it's hot." I added codonopsis, slap, this time. Zoe Sue directly set the soup pot down on the cement floor, splashing oil droplets onto Theo Wang's shiny military boots. "If you don't want to drink it, then feed it to the dogs." Theo Wang's hand, which had been unbuckling his duty belt, paused. His dark, piercing eyes stared at her, sending a chill down her spine. Zoe Sue stiffened her neck and met his gaze, only then noticing a freshly scabbed scar on his right cheek, likely from training in her past life. She would have been so heartbroken that she'd have stayed up all night searching through medical books for a scar removal remedy. Now, she wished she could throw a handful of salt on it. "Zoe Sue," his voice was as heavy as a muffled drum. "Stop making a scene." "Me, making a scene?" Zoe Sue grabbed the feather duster and pointed it out the window. "Then why don't you explain? Was it you who specially approved the Dacron fabric coupon for that Vixen Wu Jinyan's dress through the logistics department?" The moonlight cast the shadow of the locust tree onto the window paper, making one's eyes dizzy. Theo Wang slammed his military cap onto the table, revealing his short, stubble-like hair. "She's a key member of the performance troupe, and the costumes for the show." "Bullshit." Zoe Sue whipped the duster across the sewing machine, startling the fabric scraps resting on it into the air. "Out of 20 people in the performance troupe, is Wu Jinyang the only one who needs a fitted waist? Does she think she's going on stage or getting married?" Theo Wang's neck flushed bright red, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down twice. Zoe Sue knew this was the warning sign before he exploded. In the past, she would have shrunk back like a quail, but now, having already died once, what the hell did she have to fear from him? "Tomorrow I'm going to the neighborhood office to get the divorce certificate." Zoe Sue tore open the camphorwood chest, rummaging for the household register, the stirred-up dust making her eyes water. "You marry your Wu Jinyang, I'll go back to my tailor shop. We'll be even." The military canteen slammed against the doorframe, shaking the portrait of the great leader hanging on the wall askew. Theo Wang's fists clenched with a cracking sound. "Zoe Sue, a military marriage is no child's play." "Child's play." Zoe Sue slapped the marriage certificate onto the sewing machine, the red plastic cover cracking at the corner. "It's been 3 years. Theo Wang, count how many men in this compound sleep in the barracks every night. Battalion Commander Zhao's wife is already pregnant with their 2nd child, and me. I've almost forgotten what your bedding even smells like." The words were too crude. Aunt Liu, eavesdropping under the windowsill, gasped in shock. Theo Wang's ears turned bright red as he grabbed her wrist. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Zoe Sue stumbled as he pulled her, her nose bumping against the second brass button on his uniform. It was still that same scent of soapberry mixed with gun oil, so strong it made her eyes sting. In her past life, she had loved burying her face right there, listening to the steady thumping of his heartbeat from his chest. "Brother Theo," Wu Jinyan's coquettish voice drifted in from outside. Sounding like a cat in heat, Zoe Sue abruptly pushed Theo Wang away and saw the woman clinging to the doorframe in a watery red blouse, her bosom nearly bursting out of the Dacron fabric. "Oh, Sister Zoe Sue, you're still awake." Wu Jinyang swayed her 2 braids, I came to discuss tomorrow's with Brother Theo. Zoe Sue spotted the gleaming Shanghai brand watch on her wrist, the very same one Theo Wang had claimed he lost last month. She suddenly burst out laughing, causing Wu Jinyang to shrink back half a step. One must say, the girls from the cultural troupe are truly precious. Zoe Sue snatched up the tailoring scissors and snipped off a lock of her bangs with a sharp crunch. Performance outfits require special fabric, and work discussions have to happen in the dead of night. The strands of hair drifted down and settled on Theo Wang's military boots. Well then, shall I make some space for the two of you? Theo Wang suddenly grabbed the scissors and tossed them with a clatter into the sewing basket. Come with me into the room, he said, as Zoe Sue was dragged and shoved into the inner room. The small of her back hit the corner of a camphorwood chest. Last year, she had packed his luggage here, and at the bottom of the chest still lay the red wedding veil from their grand ceremony. Theo Wang slid the door bolt shut with his backhand, and the shadow he cast made it hard for her to breathe. How long are you going to keep this up? He undid his collar button, the scar below his Adam's apple rising and falling with each breath. That scar was from a flying stone he took for her in their second year of marriage. Back then, the blood had stained his white shirt in a large, vivid patch. Zoe Sue turned her face away. Once we're divorced, you'll have peace and quiet. Suddenly, from outside the window, came the sound of Wu Jinyang humming a tune. On that sunny day in late spring, a vein throbbed at Theo Wang's temple. He slammed his hand against the wall behind Zoe Sue, sending plaster dust drifting down, mingling with his scorching breath as it brushed against her ear. All because of Wu Jinyang. Zoe Sue stared at the brass button swaying at his collar. On the 15th of last month, you said you were going to a meeting at the division headquarters, but you were actually accompanying her to watch romance on Lushan Mountain. The day before yesterday, when it was pouring rain, you carried her across the puddle, and the way she wrapped her arms around your neck almost left marks, and Theo Wang suddenly covered her mouth, the rough calluses on his palms scraping her lips painfully. Zoe Sue bit down hard, tasting blood but refusing to let go. The two struggled against each other until the assembly call sounded from outside. Wait for me to come back. Theo Wang grabbed his web belt and fastened it around his waist. The buckle clanging against the doorframe, Zoe Sue shouted at his retreating figure, wait for you to come back and sign. As the roar of the jeep faded into the distance, Zoe Sue collapsed in front of the sewing machine. The butterfly brand logo gleamed coldly under the moonlight. This was the most valuable item from her dowry. In her previous life, when they divorced, she didn't want anything else, just clung tightly to this sewing machine and returned to the tailor shop. Zoe Sue, sis. Wu Jinyang leaned against the doorframe like a lingering ghost, her nail polish as red as rooster blood. Theo asked me to pick up his change of clothes. Zoe Sue pulled out a white tank top from the bottom of the dresser, the collar still stained with Theo Wang's sweat. As Wu Jinyang reached out to take it, she suddenly raised her hand. Wait, why is there a lipstick mark on this? What? Wu Jinyang's face turned deathly pale. Zoe Sue shook the tank top open and held it up to the light. Wow. It's the latest shade from Shanghai's, selling for $3.50 a tube at the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. She leaned closer to Wu Jinyang's mouth. Your lipstick's fading, little sister. Wu Jinyang staggered back to the doorstep. You're slandering me. If I were you, I'd dab some behind my ears too. Zoe Sue balled up the tank top and threw it at her. Save others from catching a whiff of that cheap scent. Auntie Zhao, who was hanging clothes outside, burst out laughing. Wu Jinyang stamped her foot and ran off. Zoe Sue closed the door, only then realizing she was trembling all over. She felt for the iron box in the sewing machine drawer, pulled out her treasured white rabbit candy, and popped it into her mouth. This was brought back by Theo Wang from his last business trip to Shanghai. She hadn't been able to bring herself to eat it before, and the wrapper was crumpled from being clutched too tightly. When the morning light climbed the window frame, Zoe Sue had already taken out all of Theo Wang's clothes. The trouser legs of the military uniform were shortened by an inch, and the frayed edges of the shirt collar were re-hemmed. Back then, she was afraid he would sweat a lot during training, so she deliberately added 2 extra stitches to each piece of clothing. What a wretched fool. She slapped herself across the face, then gathered the clothes and stuffed them into the camphorwood chest. At the very bottom was a brown paper package. When she opened it, she found a pair of cloth shoes with layered soles. While sewing the 99th stitch, she had pricked her hand, and a drop of blood had seeped into the black cotton fabric. The loudspeaker suddenly started playing "The East is Red," and Zoe Sue shuddered. It was on this very morning in her past life that she had knelt in the snow, begging Theo Wang not to divorce her, while Wu Jinyang came to flaunt her supposedly pregnant belly, which didn't even exist. Not a chance this time. Zoe Sue dug out the household register and tucked it into her pocket. Just as she was about to leave, she turned back and threw Theo Wang's size 43 military boots into the stove pit. Director Lee of the neighborhood office was snacking on sunflower seeds and nearly choked when Zoe Sue walked in. "Xiao Su, what are you? How do I get a divorce certificate?" Zoe Sue slapped her marriage certificate onto the peeling office desk. "Do I need to provide a fingerprint or an official seal?" Director Lee's glasses slid to the tip of his nose. "Does Theo know?" "He doesn't know yet, but he will soon." Before Zoe Sue could finish her sentence, a screeching brake sound came from outside. Theo Wang rushed in like a whirlwind, his duty belt unfastened. Clutching a crumpled piece of paper, "Report," he was panting heavily, sweat beads rolling down his chin. "I'm here to submit a marriage application." Director Lee's mouth hung open wide enough to fit an egg. A divorce application, marriage application. Theo Wang pulled out a red velvet box from his pocket. "The wedding was rushed 3 years ago. I owe you a gold ring." Zoe Sue looked at the gleaming golden circle in the box and suddenly remembered her previous life's cremation, when the funeral staff had picked out a melted, misshapen lump of gold from her ashes, so he had remembered all along. Wu Jinyan's scream pierced through at that moment. "Theo, have you lost your mind? Didn't we agree to file for divorce today?" Theo Wang turned around, blocking Zoe Sue, his voice as cold as icicles in the dead of winter. "Comrade Wu Jinyang, please address me as Regimental Commander Wang." "But you said." "I said I would look after the new comrades in the cultural troop." Theo Wang pulled a transfer order from his document bag. "You will report to the Border Defense Company tomorrow. They are in greater need of cultural and artistic backbone personnel." Zoe Sue's hand trembled as she clutched the gold ring, her mind flashing back to the image of Wu Jinyang from her previous life, proudly flaunting her fake belly. So this bastard had known all along. Theo Wang. She kicked his military boot. "Were you just making a fool out of me?" Zoe Sue had put all her strength into that kick, leaving a dusty footprint on Theo Wang's military boot. Director Lee's enamel mug clattered to the ground, and the goji berries rolled along the brick seams, stopping right under Wu Jinyan's high heels. "Zoe Sue, listen to me." Theo Wang didn't get to finish his sentence before the gold ring box was slapped against his chest. Zoe Sue's fingers trembled, not out of anger, but from the memory of her previous life, clutching that misshapen, melted lump of gold on her deathbed, so tightly that the nurses couldn't pry it from her hand. "Battalion Commander Wang, you're quite the strategist." Zoe Sue pushed the divorce certificate toward Director Lee. 3 years ago when we got the marriage license, you said the mission was urgent, threw 3 banquet tables and then ran off to suppress bandits. Now that it's time for a divorce, you suddenly remember to get a ring. Wu Jinyang suddenly rushed forward and grabbed Theo Wang's sleeve. "Brother Theo, don't be foolish." This shrew. Before she could finish, Theo Wang shook her off, causing her to hit the small of her back against the corner of a filing cabinet. "Comrade Wu Jinyang, mind your discipline." Theo Wang pulled a red booklet from his pants pocket and slammed it on the table. Zoe Sue caught a glimpse of the words marriage application and felt a headache coming on. In her previous life, she had waited until death without ever seeing this thing, and by the end, the weeds on her grave were brighter than the red cover of a marriage certificate. Director Lee adjusted his glasses and read aloud. Applicant Theo Wang shares a deep emotional bond with Comrade Zoe Sue. He choked on his own words at this point, looked up at Zoe Sue's furious eyes, and then at Theo Wang's back, stiff as a steel plate. "Deep my ass." Zoe Sue grabbed the application form and was about to tear it. But Theo Wang seized her wrist. The two struggled against each other, and the paper ripped with a sharp crack, splitting Theo Wang's name right down the middle. Outside, the hallway was packed with onlookers. Aunt Liu clicked her tongue while cracking sunflower seeds. As they say, couples who fight in bed make up by bedtime. 3 years of making up, and we still haven't figured it out. Zoe Sue yanked her hand back abruptly, and the marriage application fluttered to the ground. Theo Wang's neck veins bulged as he suddenly bent down, picked up the ring, grabbed Zoe Sue's left hand, and tried to force it onto her ring finger. Zoe Sue shivered at the touch of his icy fingers as the gold band got stuck at her knuckle, neither going on nor coming off. Theo Wang's palm was sweaty, and the calluses from handling guns scraped painfully against the back of her hand. "Let go, do you think you're loading a gun? That day you said you wanted a gold ring." Theo Wang's voice suddenly rose, rattling the glass of the filing cabinet. "By the time I got back from the bandit suppression, the supply and marketing cooperative was closed. I climbed over the wall to get in and got disciplined for it." Zoe Sue was stunned. She remembered that rainy night 3 years ago. She had only glanced a few extra times at the gold ring worn by Aunt Zhao next door. In the middle of the night, Theo Wang kicked the door open, drenched as if fished out of water, threw her an oil paper package, and turned to leave without a word. When she opened it, it was a pack of white rabbit candies, the wrappers soaked and ruined by the rain. Wu Jinyang suddenly screamed and lunged at the application form. "This should clearly have my name on it," her bright red nail polish smeared across the paper. Looking like drops of blood, Theo Wang stepped sideways, shielding Zoe Sue. Wu Jinyang couldn't stop her momentum in time and banged her forehead against his military belt. Bursting into loud sobs, "Director Lee, please handle this according to the regulations." Theo Wang pulled out his military officer's ID and slapped it on the table. "The divorce certificate is void. Process the marriage application now." Zoe Sue suddenly burst out laughing, tears streaming down her chin. She wiped her face, pulled a tailor's scissors from her pocket, and with a snip, cut off the gold ring tangled around her knuckles. "Theo Wang, do you think I'm your military dog? Wagging my tail for a piece of meat?" The half-cut gold ring bounced under the filing cabinet, and Wu Jinyang crawled to retrieve it. Zoe Sue stepped on the hem of her skirt, and the water-red Dacron fabric tore with a rip. "Little sister, this scrap of metal suits you perfectly." Outside, a sudden clap of thunder exploded, and raindrops pounded noisily against the tin roof. Theo Wang abruptly scooped Zoe Sue into his arms horizontally, ignoring her kicking and hitting, and strode through the mess in his military boots. "Director Lee, come get the wedding candies tomorrow." "Theo Wang, put me down." Zoe Sue dug her nails into the back of his neck, feeling a rough, uneven scar. It was from a beam that burned him last year when he saved her. He had stubbornly carried her for 2 miles, and the wound festered for half a month. The jeep jolted so violently in the rain that it made people nauseous. When Zoe Sue was thrown into the back seat, her head hit the window frame. Theo Wang tore open his collar, water droplets trickling down his Adam's apple. "Had enough of this?" "Not enough." Zoe Sue lunged at him, biting his shoulder, tasting the metallic tang through his soaked military uniform. "Who gave you the right to make decisions for me, in my past life?" She choked off abruptly. Theo Wang suddenly grabbed her chin. "What past life?" The windshield wipers swept a half-circle on the front window. Zoe Sue stared at his moving Adam's apple. There should have been a scar there, from being scraped by a steel bar during the 1998 flood relief. But now his neck was smooth, with only a brown mole. "Theo Wang." Zoe Sue suddenly went limp, tears mixing with rain as they streamed down her collar. "Just let me go." The hand gripping her chin trembled slightly before Theo Wang abruptly pulled a military belt and strapped her to the car seat, just as Zoe Sue was about to curse him. His lips, carrying the scent of gun oil, pressed down on hers. She bit his tongue fiercely, the taste of blood spreading in her mouth. But Theo Wang only tightened his grip on the back of her head, deepening the kiss. The car roof thudded under the heavy rain. When Zoe Sue finally broke free, a trace of blood still lingered at the corner of her mouth. Theo Wang's thumb brushed over her swollen lips, a dark fire burning in his eyes. "Let you go. Back when you were holding that little red book and swearing you'd spend your whole life with me. Why didn't you say that then?" Zoe Sue froze completely. That was the summer of 1976. She had squeezed in among the educated youth, watching him enlist with a large red flower pinned to his chest. As the truck started moving, she had chased it for 2 miles, holding a tattered copy of asterisk quotations from Chairman Mao Tse-tung asterisk and shouting, "Theo Wang, I'll wait for you to come back and marry me." Stop bringing up the past. Zoe Sue unbuckled her utility belt. That was then, this is now. The jeep screeched to a halt at the courtyard gate. Theo Wang hoisted her over his shoulder and carried her into the house. Hanging upside down, Zoe Sue saw Wu Jinyang stamping her feet in the rain. Her red leather shoes stuck in a mud puddle and unable to be pulled out. Brother Theo, you said you would. I said I would take care of you for Uncle Wu. Theo Wang kicked the door open. Now you've joined the cultural troupe and obtained an urban residence permit. I haven't broken my promise. As Zoe Sue was thrown onto the military-issue cotton quilt, she suddenly remembered that Wu Jinyan's father was Theo Wang's savior, in her previous life. She never figured out until her dying day whether this bastard actually had feelings for Wu Jinyang or not. Theo Wang turned on the desk lamp, the warm yellow light softening the water stains on his brow bone. Only then did Zoe Sue see the bloodshot veins in his eyes and the mud flecks mixed with the stubble on his chin. I've figured out the safflower in the chicken soup, he suddenly spoke, startling Zoe Sue into clenching the bedsheet. Wu Jinyan's cousin works at the medicinal herb station and has been sending herbs to our house for half a year. Theo Wang pulled an oil paper packet from his pants pocket, unfolding it to reveal a few dried flower stamens. Last time you said you couldn't conceive, I already felt something was off. Zoe Sue stared at the safflower pieces, her mind flashing back to the blinding fluorescent lights in the operating room. In her past life, she had clung to Theo Wang's sleeve until she lost consciousness, waiting for him to say, let's try for another one. I've written 17 divorce reports. Theo Wang suddenly crouched down, the knees of his military pants stained with dark watermarks. Every time I was about to submit one, I'd remember you huddled in front of the stove, blowing on the fire. Zoe Sue's throat tightened. In her past life, she always loved crouching to tend the fire because Theo Wang said wood-fired meals were more fragrant. Once, a spark flew into her eye, and he applied a cold towel to it for half the night. A dull thunderclap exploded outside the window. Theo Wang reached out to touch her face, but she slapped his hand away. Why pretend to be a romantic now? Last month, you went to the movies with Wu Jinyang. It was to track a spy. Theo Wang tore open his shirt, revealing a bandage over his heart. There was enemy radio transmission noise in the screening of Romance on Lushan Mountain. Her brother is a switchboard operator at the post office. Zoe Sue stared at the yellow iodine stain seeping from the edge of the gauze and suddenly remembered the smell of blood when she washed his shirt last month. That day, he said it was a training scrape, but it turns out, carrying her across the river in that heavy rain, she saw a floating corpse upstream and fainted from fright. Theo Wang unwrapped the gauze, revealing a gruesome wound still stitched up. This cut was from debris in the water while I was retrieving the body. Zoe Sue's fingertips turned cold. In her previous life, she had only thought Theo Wang was growing more and more disgusted with her, never realizing he was hiding so many injuries beneath his military uniform. The most ridiculous part was Wu Jinyang, who flaunted these incidents as battle achievements in front of her. She stole the watch. Theo Wang took an iron box from the drawer. Inside lay the comb, hair tie that Zoe Sue had lost last month, and that Shanghai watch. I was planning to gather enough evidence before dealing with it all at once. Zoe Sue picked up the comb, the side with the missing teeth still engraved with the word Zoe. It was a keepsake left by her mother, something she had searched for until her death in her previous life but never found. Turns out this bastard had been keeping it. Why didn't you say something earlier? Zoe Sue's throat felt as if stuffed with cotton. Theo Wang rewrapped the gauze. Shadows falling across the bridge of his nose. I was afraid you'd get dragged into it. He suddenly began to cough, dark red blood seeping through his fingers. Cough. The doctor said this injury. I have at most 5 years left. Zoe Sue's comb clattered to the floor. In her past life, Theo Wang had died in 1988 due to a recurrence of an old injury. At the funeral, Wu Jinyang had even worn mourning clothes, so that was it. Bullshit. She suddenly lunged forward, grabbing his shirt. Are the military hospitals just for show? What happened to the medicine they prescribed you last time? Theo Wang let her tug and pull, a faint smile playing on his lips. Zoe Sue, stop calling my name like that. Zoe Sue's fingers brushed against the prominent vertebrae on his back. He had lost even more weight since last year. No wonder his military uniform hadn't needed any recent alterations around the waist. She had thought it was just Wu Jinyan's skilled tailoring. Back then you said you wanted to give me a daughter, Theo Wang suddenly said, with eyes like yours and a temper like mine. Zoe Su's hand paused. In her past life, the one she had aborted was a fully formed male fetus. She had secretly buried him under a pine tree on the hill behind the military base. And every Qingming festival, she would use picking wild vegetables as an excuse to go there and cry. Theo Wang pulled out a pair of tiger-head shoes from under the pillow. The stitching crooked and uneven, clearly the work of a man's hands. I learned how to make these, for when you're ready. Zoe Su snatched the shoes and threw them at his face. Ready for what? Damn it. The cloth shoes fell to the ground, revealing the characters for peace embroidered inside, the gold thread already frayed. Theo Wang suddenly collapsed into her arms, his forehead frighteningly hot. Only when Zoe Su felt the cold sweat on the back of his neck did she remember that he had been running around in the rain for half the night with a fever. The medicine is in the drawer. Theo Wang's breathy voice brushed against her collarbone, sending a tingling sensation through her chest. Zoe Su frantically rummaged for the fever-reducing pills, and when she pried open his mouth to put one in, he bit down on her fingertip. Let go. Zoe Su shook her hand. Are you a dog or something? Theo Wang swallowed the pill with her help, his Adam's apple bobbing. I was born in the year of the dragon, 3 years older than you. In the moment Zoe Su was lost in thought, he pulled her down onto the hard plank bed. Theo Wang rested his chin on the top of her head, his warm breath swirling around her hair. Let me hold you for a while, just a little while. Outside the window, the rain gradually eased. Zoe Su stared at the swaying shadow of the military cap on the wall. In her past life, she often thought how impressive it would be if this military cap could be worn on her son's head. As she thought about it, tears soaked the gauze on his chest. Theo Wang was burning with fever, yet the knuckles clutching the hem of Zoe Su's clothes were pale and bloodless. Zoe Su wrung out a cold towel and placed it on his forehead. Under the dim glow of the desk lamp, his sharp brows softened, revealing a hint of youthful innocence. Water, he groaned hoarsely. His Adam's apple struggling to move beneath the gauze. Zoe Su pressed the military canteen to his lips, but Theo Wang suddenly grabbed her wrist. Don't go, let go. Zoe Su struggled, catching sight of that crescent-shaped scar beneath his collarbone, the one she had bitten when she was 18. Back then, Theo Wang had returned from the army to visit home, and she had been hiding behind the old locust tree at the village entrance, secretly watching, only to be caught by him. Are you a dog or what? The young Theo Wang grimaced in pain, his camouflage vest stained red with blood. Zoe Su held up a poultice of mashed herbs and smeared it on his wound. Who told you to pop out of nowhere? Memories, mixed with the damp scent of rain, surged up. Zoe Su pried his fingers open. Suddenly, Theo Wang flipped over and pinned her down, his hot breath fanning against her neck. That year, you said, you wanted to have 5 kids with me. You're delirious with fever. Zoe Su kicked him in the shin, but her hand brushed against the uneven scars. They were from the steel rebar that had slashed him during the landslide the year before last, when he had carried an injured young soldier for 10 miles along the mountain road. Theo Wang suddenly let out a muffled groan, cold sweat trickling down the bridge of his nose. Zoe Su felt the blood seeping through the gauze on his back and, recalling the bandaging technique taught by Dr. Liu at the clinic, she inexplicably lifted his shirt. Crisscrossing scars sprawled across his suntanned skin, with the newest wound stitched crookedly like centipede legs. Zoe Su's fingers trembled slightly as she dabbed ointment onto the injury, only to have her fingertips suddenly seized. Back then, you were just like this, Theo Wang murmured with his eyes closed, applying frostbite ointment for me in the new recruits camp. Zoe Su's hand jerked, smearing ointment onto the bedsheet. That was the winter of 1979. She had trudged through heavy snow to deliver cotton-padded coats to the new recruits and saw the raw, cracked wounds on Theo Wang's hands. The young nurse found it too dirty to touch, but she snatched the ointment and applied it for him, only to be teased by his comrades as the little wife coming to visit. Stop flattering yourself. Zoe Su grabbed the gauze and wrapped it tightly. If it had been anyone else back then, I would have, before she could finish. Theo Wang suddenly burst out laughing, causing his wound to ooze blood. What you applied on Jiao Dahu was chili oil. Zoe Su froze. That unruly soldier who used to fight with her over the frostbite ointment had been avoiding her ever since, so that was why. She couldn't help but chuckle, and as she laughed, tears fell onto his back. By the time the morning light crept over the windowsill, Theo Wang's fever had subsided a little. Zoe Su tiptoed to the kitchen to cook porridge. When she lifted the lid of the clay pot, she was stunned. Soaked wood ear mushrooms torn into small pieces, cured meat diced and fried until fragrant, all ingredients known to treat blood loss. Damn it, she stirred the bubbling porridge and suddenly remembered how, in her past life, whenever she fell ill, there would always be appropriate food placed by her bedside. She had thought it was Aunt Zhao's kindness, but it turned out, after secretly learning for 3 months. I finally didn't waste anything. Theo Wang leaned against the doorframe, his military uniform hanging loosely. The morning light cast a golden halo around him, making him seem like that handsome young man from back in the day, wearing a big red flower. Zoe Su scooped a spoonful of porridge and blew on it. Did you learn this in the mess squad? The wife of old Jew from the mess squad taught me. Theo Wang took the bowl, his fingers rubbing against the chip on the rim. She said you often have stomachaches in the winter. Zoe Su stared at the chip in the porcelain, the one Theo Wang had made last year when he lost his temper. At the time, she had been crouched down picking up the fragments when he yelled, "Don't cut your hand," only for him to end up with a gash across his own palm. Wu Jinyan's cousin was arrested, Theo Wang said abruptly. The medicinal herb station uncovered 20 gin of safflower, and he confessed to everything. The porcelain spoon clinked against the rim of the bowl. Zoe Su recalled the blinding white of the operating room lights. In her past life, she had lain on the delivery bed waiting for a signature that never came. The nurse said Regimental Commander Wang was in an important meeting. So that day's meeting was actually about making an arrest. I tore up the divorce report, Theo Wang said, pulling a small red cloth bundle from his trouser pocket. Unwrapping it revealed the broken half of the gold ring, the break bound together with red thread. Should we have it remade, or, ding-ling, the door curtain was suddenly pushed aside, and Wu Jinyang rushed in, her makeup smeared. Brother Theo, they're transferring me to the mess squad to feed the pigs. Theo Wang slammed the bowl of porridge onto the table. This is the organization's decision. You promised to take care of me for life. Wu Jinyang tugged at his sleeve. Just because of this Baron, slap. Zoe Su shook her stinging hand. Wu Jinyang covered her face and screamed, "How dare you hit me? I'm hitting you because you're an ungrateful wretch." Zoe Su yanked open her collar and pulled out a gold necklace. "This is hanging with Theo Wang's military medal. Do you think it's a dog tag?" Theo Wang suddenly stood up, his wound tearing open. Only then did Zoe Su notice his neck was empty. That bullet-pierced military medal, in her previous life. She had clutched it tightly until her death. "Give it back." Theo Wang reached out to snatch it. Wu Jinyang suddenly backed toward the stove, and the overturned pot of porridge was about to spill onto her legs. Zoe Su instinctively rushed to block it, and the scalding rice soup splashed all over her right arm. Zoe Su. Theo Wang scooped water from the vat and poured it over her arm. The cold water stung her skin, but Zoe Su was staring blankly at his reddened eyes. In her past life, when she was scalded by boiling water, this bastard hadn't even accompanied her to the infirmary. Wu Jinyang seized the chance to slip away but was kicked by Theo Wang onto the doorstep. "Stealing a military medal is enough to land you in a military court. Go explain yourself to the security department." At the clinic, Dr. Liu applied badger oil to Zoe Su's arm. Luckily, no blisters formed. "I must say, you two lovebirds, who's in a relationship with him?" Zoe Su pulled her arm back. Theo Wang crouched nearby, peeling an apple, the skin forming one long, unbroken strip. "Back when I was bitten by a snake during field training, you did the same. Keep bringing up the past and I'll sew your mouth shut." Zoe Su snatched the apple and took a bite, sweet juice trickling down the corner of her mouth. Theo Wang suddenly leaned in to lick the juice from her lips, startling military Dr. Liu so much that he dropped his tweezers. "Theo Wang, you, Her scolding was muffled against his mouth, the sweetness of the apple mixing with the bitterness of the ointment. Zoe Su pounded his back but felt the unhealed wounds beneath the bandages, her strikes unconsciously softening. As the sunset stretched their shadows long, Theo Wang carried her home on his back. Zoe Sue rested against his sweat-dampened shirt, breathing in the familiar scent of soapberries. When you came back from suppressing the bandits back then, you carried me like this too. You were as light as a kitten back then. Theo Wang adjusted his grip on her. Now you actually have some weight to you. If it's too heavy, just put me down. Zoe Sue pinched his ear, then caught sight of the mess hall soldiers trying to hold back their laughter. Suddenly, she buried her burning face into the nape of his neck, the thumping of her heartbeat transmitted through his military uniform, pounding so hard it made his ears tingle. The double happiness character on the camphorwood chest suddenly fell off, as Zoe Sue bent down to pick it up. She pulled out a bright red wedding dress from the bottom of the chest. The golden threaded mandarin ducks had faded, and the cuffs still bore the tear stains from when she had cried on it years ago. You refused to wear it no matter what on our wedding day. Theo Wang rubbed the fabric frog buttons on the dress. You said it looked like a giant red envelope from under the quilt. Zoe Sue traced the frayed embroidery. That day, the mountain road had been washed out by a heavy rain. Theo Wang had waded through waist-deep mud to fetch his bride. The Swana horns were too waterlogged to play, so he stood on the roof of a jeep and sang Ode to the Red Plum Blossom, singing so loudly that all the village dogs started howling along. Try it. Theo Wang suddenly shook out the wedding dress. Zoe Sue hastily stepped back. You're insane. How old are we now? 37. Theo Wang unbuttoned her blouse. 10 years younger than in my dreams. The rustle of fabric startled the sparrows outside the window. As Zoe Sue was enveloped in the bright red brocade, she heard Theo Wang's chest vibrate with laughter. Still fits perfectly. The person in the mirror had flushed cheeks. Zoe Sue vaguely saw her 18-year-old self. Theo Wang embraced her from behind, resting his chin on her head. That year you said you'd wear this to celebrate our golden anniversary with me. Cut the crap. Zoe Sue stomped on his foot. You said soldiers aren't into this sort of thing. Times have changed. Theo Wang pulled out a gold bracelet and slipped it onto her wrist, got it from raiding a bandit's hideout. I snuck one away before turning everything in. Zoe Sue stared at the bullet mark inside the bracelet and suddenly recalled what the crematorium worker had said in her past life. This family member was clutching something in their hand. Might be an important item. So he had long ago hidden his true heart amid the hail of bullets. As dusk deepened, Theo Wang chopped firewood in the yard. Zoe Sue folded the altered military uniform into the camphorwood chest. With the bright red wedding dress pressed firmly at the very bottom, the radio was playing Sweet as Honey, and she hummed along for a few lines before suddenly being pulled into an embrace that smelled of firewood. Let's go take our wedding photos tomorrow. Theo Wang nuzzled the tip of his nose against her earlobe. The Civil Affairs Bureau just got a new Seagull camera. No, Zoe Sue elbowed him in the ribs. My divorce certificate hasn't even had time to cool off yet. Then warm me up first. Theo Wang pressed her hand against his chest, where a scar rose and fell with his heartbeat. Warm me for a lifetime. The cicada's shrill cries tore through the scorching July heat. Zoe Sue's foot slipped on the sewing machine pedal, and the needle snapped as it pierced her index finger. A drop of blood seeped into the Dacron fabric, blooming like a crimson plum blossom. She stared blankly at the military uniform hanging outside the window. It should have been collected today, yet it had been swaying on the clothesline for 3 days. Xiao Su, Aunt Liu's booming voice burst through the screen window. Your Theo is at the training ground with the new girl from the cultural troupe. Oh, just go see for yourself. Zoe Sue's blood-stained fingers smeared onto the sewing machine cover. Looking just like the fingerprint she'd pressed onto her marriage certificate years ago, the rhythmic clatter of the Butterfly brand sewing machine came to an abrupt halt as she snatched the clothes-drying pole and dashed toward the training ground, the rubber soles of her shoes feeling hot enough to melt through the wire fence. She saw Theo Wang holding a girl in an apple-green dress. The girl seemed to have twisted her ankle and was leaning into his embrace, her wavy chestnut hair brushing against his arm, while the sunlight tangled their shadows into a twisted knot. Attention! Theo Wang suddenly barked. The girl staggered to steady herself. Just as Zoe Sue was about to sigh in relief, she saw him pull a square handkerchief from his trouser pocket, light blue checkered. One she had sewn from leftover curtain fabric. Regiment Commander Wang is so considerate. The girl's voice was sickly sweet, her crimson lacquered fingers tracing his palm. You must sit in the front row for tomorrow's morale performance. The clothes hanger in Zoe Sue's hand clattered to the ground. Theo Wang turned at the sound, but the girl took the opportunity to link arms with him. And who is this big sister? Theo Wang shook off her hand, his military boots crunching over gravel. My wife. Oh, so it's Sister Zoe Sue. The girl swept aside her bangs, revealing the teardrop mole at the corner of her eye. I've often heard Sister Jin Yang mention you. She says the military uniforms you alter fit better than those from the logistics department. Zoe Sue stared at the red string around her neck. Dangling from it was a brass bullet casing, identical to the one Theo Wang treasured in her past life. She had to pry open his stiff fingers at the crematorium to retrieve that bullet, which had been taken from his chest. Tonight we're having dumplings. Zoe Sue bent down to pick up the clothes drying pole. Leak filling. Theo Wang reached out to steady her, but she sidestepped to avoid him. The young woman suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, Regimental Commander Wang, there's a thread stuck to your cuff." As she spoke, she pressed close to brush his wrist, her bright red nail polish glaring painfully in the sunlight. A sour taste exploded in her chest. Zoe Sue grabbed Theo Wang's arm. "Let's go home." Her nails dug into the old scar in the crook of his elbow, a mark left when he took a blow from a hoe for her. During dinner, the aluminum pot lid was popping. Theo Wang picked up a dumpling with a broken skin. Mila Lin, the new member of the cultural troupe, her father, slap. The vinegar bottle slammed onto the enamel plate, splashing liquid that stained the front of the military uniform. Zoe Sue grabbed a rag and wiped haphazardly. The smell of leaks mixed with garlic paste making her eyes sting. Theo Wang, where is the bullet casing you kept close to your heart? Theo Wang's chopsticks paused in the vinegar dish. I turned it in. Bullshit. Zoe Sue overturned the stool. Last month you were still using it to open beer bottles for me, Zoe Sue. Theo Wang gripped her wrist, his palm bearing the marks of gunpowder burns. Deputy Division Commander Lin has spoken with me. She suddenly remembered going to the division headquarters the day before yesterday to deliver the altered military uniforms and overhearing the conversation drifting from the restroom. Regiment Commander Wang's career is at stake. Deputy Division Commander Lin's daughter. The divorce report should have been approved long ago. Are you getting promoted? Zoe Sue shook off his hand, her lower back hitting the corner of the cupboard. The pickled garlic in the glass jar sloshed brown liquid. Just like the blood that had flowed to her ankles years ago. Theo Wang reached out to pull her, but suddenly a horn sounded outside the door. The messenger poked half his head in. Regiment Commander, Comrade Lin says she needs you to confirm the performance costumes. Zoe Sue grabbed the rolling pin and swung it at the Jeep's tire. Confirm your ancestors. The scraping sound of the paint being scratched startled the cicadas in the poplar tree, sending them flying. Theo Wang wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, his hot breath hitting her sweaty nape. Stop messing around, it's a mission. Does the mission require hugging and holding? Does the mission require giving love tokens? Zoe Sue scratched his chin with her free hand, leaving 3 bloody marks that oozed droplets of blood. Theo Wang, you told Wu Jinyang it was a mission too. As the words were shouted, both of them froze. Theo Wang loosened his grip, and Zoe Sue took the chance to break free, only to see Mila Lin emerging from the back seat of the Jeep, her apple green skirt brushing against Theo Wang's military boots. Don't misunderstand, Sister Zoe Sue. Mila Lin dangled the car keys. My dad asked me to learn how to drive from Commander Wang, saying it would be convenient for when I follow the army in the future. Convenient my ass. Zoe Sue tore off her apron and threw it on the ground. I've had enough of this damn military housing. A tin box slid out of the apron pocket, scattering a tiger head shoe, a gold bracelet, and half a ring all over the floor. Theo Wang bent down to pick them up. But Mila Lin's high heel stepped on the gold bracelet. Regiment Commander Wang, we should go. Zoe Sue grabbed Mila Lin's curly hair and slammed her against the wall, looking just like she did when beating up chicken thieves back in the day. Theo Wang wrapped his arms around her waist and lifted her off the ground. Her legs flailed wildly, and her rubber shoe flew up to the roof beam, stirring up a cloud of years-old dust. You're protecting her. Zoe Sue turned her head and bit his arm. Theo Wang, has your conscience been eaten by a dog? That year when you were shot and unconscious, who was it who stayed awake for 3 days and 3 nights? Theo Wang pressed her against the square table, his eyes bloodshot. Who chewed ginseng slices and passed them into my mouth? Zoe Su, I've carved all of this into my bones. Mila Lin's sobs were as faint as a mosquito's hum. But Zoe Su was fixated on the faint red string visible at Theo Wang's collar. The spot where the bullet casing should have been hanging was now empty. Suddenly, she lost all strength, her nails digging into the growth rings in the table's crevice. Let's get a divorce, I'll make room for Miss Lin. Theo Wang's pupils contracted sharply. He snatched the car keys and hurled them toward the door, as Mila Lin's screams mingled with the sound of the Jeep starting and fading into the distance. He gripped Zoe Su's chin, forcing her to look up. Say that again. I said let's get DI. Miles per hour. Theo Wang's kiss, carrying the metallic taste of blood, crashed down on her. Even when Zoe Su bit his tongue until it bled, he refused to let go. The teacup on the square table rolled to the floor and shattered into pieces, eerily reminiscent of the pair of enamel mugs they had used for the ceremonial wine on their wedding night. During the struggle, the dresser was knocked over, and a yellowed medical report fluttered out from the drawer. Zoe Su caught sight of the words habitual abortion and suddenly went into a frenzy, tearing at the paper. No wonder you went looking for someone who could bear children. Theo Wang snatched the torn pieces with his bare hands, his fingertips cut and bleeding. I hid this because I was afraid it would hurt you. Hid? Haven't you hidden enough? Zoe Su kicked him away, hiding injuries, hiding illnesses, hiding bullet casings, and now you're even hiding people. She grabbed the wedding dress from the camphorwood chest and tore at it, the sound of the gold threads snapping like heartstrings breaking. Theo Wang suddenly drew his service pistol, loaded it, and fired a shot through the roof beam with a bang. In the dust that fluttered down, his eyes were red-rimmed. Zoe Su, if I, Theo Wang, ever betray you, may I be struck by lightning. I should have struck you dead long ago. Zoe Su threw the torn wedding dress fragments at him. That year when the flood hit, you said you were going to help with disaster relief, but you ended up at Wu Jinyan's house. Her father entrusted her to me on his deathbed. The house collapsed and I went to rescue people. Theo Wang tore open his shirt, revealing a scar on his chest as hideous as a centipede. This injury was from a falling roof beam. Do you want to count how many ribs were broken? Zoe Su stared blankly at the scar. In her past life, when she changed his burial clothes, this wound had already festered and bred maggots. She had cleaned it bit by bit with a cotton swab, and in the end, she swallowed both the maggots and her tears. Mila Lin's shrill voice suddenly blared from the loudspeaker. Next, we invite Regimental Commander Theo Wang and Comrade Mila Lin to sing The Moon on the 15th together. Theo Wang's face suddenly changed color as he grabbed his military belt and ran toward the auditorium. Zoe Su, as if possessed, followed him and hid behind the curtain, watching Mila Lin stand on tiptoe to pin a boutonniere on him. The rose-red silk flower was exactly the same as the one she had worn years ago. Regiment Commander Wang, my father said that once the marriage application is approved, he will transfer you. Mila Lin's trailing words were drowned out by applause. Theo Wang took half a step back, and the boutonniere fell to the ground, crushed under her high heels into a crumpled mess. Zoe Su turned around and bumped into a prop rack, causing red silk to cascade down over her head and face. When Theo Wang lifted the silk cloth, he only caught hold of a cold wrist. The gold bracelet he had personally placed there was gone, leaving only a faint white mark. The night rain drenched the military compound as Zoe Su curled up among the fabric piles in the tailor's shop. The sewing machine that had been part of her dowry had rusted, and when pedaled, it creaked like a crow's mournful cry. Inside the glass cabinet lay the hair ties and clips Theo Wang had given her, and the dusty marriage certificate still bore the blue ink fingerprint. The door curtain was suddenly pushed aside, and Theo Wang rushed in, drenched from head to toe. The front of his military uniform bulged conspicuously. He pulled out an oil paper package, wrapped layer upon layer, containing that bullet casing. I didn't trade it for Deputy Division Commander Lin's transfer order, he said, his lips purple from the cold. Zoe Su, if I can keep this bullet casing safe, I can keep you safe too. Zoe Su traced the dent on the bullet casing, the mark left when it had lodged in her shoulder blade years ago. Suddenly, she remembered the delirious words Theo Wang had muttered while unconscious. Zoe, don't look. It's scary. Amid the sound of rain, hurried footsteps mixed in, Mila Lin shone a flashlight into the room. Theo Wang, how dare you hide military secrets here? The bullet casing rolled to the ground, and Theo Wang stepped on it with his foot. This is my life. He grabbed Zoe Sue's hand and pressed it against his chest. If you want my life, here it is. But if you want the bullet casing, the crisp sound of the gun being cocked pierced through the rain, you'll have to ask it first. Mila Lin's flashlight clattered to the ground, its beam illuminating the bullet marks on the casing like a menacing eye. Theo Wang's gun barrel emitted a faint wisp of smoke, and Zoe Sue caught the familiar scent of gunpowder, exactly the same as the smell on the urn at the funeral parlor in her past life. You're insane. Mila Lin stepped back, splashing through puddles. This is defying military orders. Theo Wang tore off his collar insignia and slammed it onto the tailor's table. The brass 5-point star gleamed coldly in the rain. Back in the day, I risked my life to fight for this country, not to become a stepping stone for parasites like you. Zoe Sue suddenly remembered that rainy night in 1979, when Theo Wang kicked open the door of the tailor shop covered in blood. Shoving the military medal into her hand, if I don't come back, use this to pay for my coffin. At that time, his eyes burned with the same fire, fierce enough to boil the pouring rain. When Deputy Division Commander Lin rushed in with the guard platoon, Theo Wang was kneeling on the ground wiping bullet casings. Zoe Sue held the tip of her scissors against her neck, blood trickling down her collarbone. If anyone dares touch him, I'll die right here. Nonsense. Deputy Division Commander Lin's face flickered in the lightning. Theo, for someone who can't even lay an egg, bang, the bullet whizzed past Deputy Division Commander Lin's ear. Shattering the portrait of the great leader on the wall, Theo Wang smoothly changed the magazine with one hand, his movements reminiscent of the champion from that year's martial arts competition. If I hear that again, the next bullet goes here. He tapped the barrel of the gun against his own temple. Zoe Sue's scissors clattered to the floor. She finally got a clear look at the bloodstains spreading across Theo Wang's back, like a blooming red plum blossom. This fool's wound had torn open. And he was still putting on a brave face. Everyone, get out. Theo Wang suddenly staggered to his feet. I need to have a private word with my wife. Mila Lin still wanted to say something, but her father grabbed her by the arm and dragged her away. Zoe Sue heard the sound of the jeep's engine fading into the distance, mingling with the rumble of thunder. When she turned around, she saw Theo Wang loading bullets into the sewing machine. Before the words could fully leave her mouth, Theo Wang collapsed headfirst into a pile of fabric. Zoe Sue rushed over and began tearing at his clothes. The putrid stench from his festering wound was so overwhelming it made her head throb. This injury had clearly been infected for at least 3 days. There weren't enough patient gowns at the infirmary, so Zoe Sue cut up her wedding dress to use as bandages. Theo Wang was delirious with fever, gripping her wrist and mumbling, "Don't be afraid, Zoe, I've cleared all the landmines." It was the spring of 1981. She had been visiting the front lines with a morale support troop when she stepped on an anti-personnel mine. Theo Wang lay on the ground for 2 hours dismantling it, his sweat dripping and forming small pits in the dirt. Later, he used that incident as his marriage proposal. "I won my wife with my life. No one, not even the heavens, can take her from me. You bastard." Zoe Sue wrung out the damp towel, her tears falling onto his burning chest. Addicted to playing the hero, are you? The night rain beat against the tin roof as Zoe Sue pulled out the metal box he had hidden deep in the dresser. Beneath the bullet casings lay a yellowed medical record book. The latest page reading, shrapnel displacement, amputation recommended. The date was last Wednesday, the very day he had claimed to be attending a meeting at the division headquarters. Liar. Zoe Sue slapped the medical record book against his face. "I'd accept you even if you were crippled. What gives you the right to make decisions for me?" Theo Wang's eyelashes fluttered, a faint smile appearing on his fever-flushed face. "Back then, you said you wanted to marry a man who stood tall and proud." "Bullshit. I said I wanted to marry a living man." Zoe Sue yanked up his pant leg, revealing a gruesome scar winding around his calf. In their previous life, when she had changed his burial clothes, this leg had been so emaciated it was nothing but bone. But now, it could still carry her for 2 miles. At the break of dawn, Theo Wang suddenly began convulsing. Zoe Sue dug out a silver bracelet from the bottom of her chest and ran toward the town. This was the dowry her mother had left behind. Something she hadn't even been willing to pawn during the famine years. From behind the iron bars of the pawn shop, a plump hand reached out. Military family belongings. You'll need proof. Proof my ass. Zoe Sue grabbed an inkstone and hurled it. This is money to save a life. The old street erupted with the piercing sound of an alarm as Zoe Sue, clutching 50 yuan, sprinted away. The wind tore into her lungs like a knife, and she remembered the year she had chased after the military truck. When the canteen Theo Wang threw down had bruised her forehead. The clinic corridor was packed with soldiers carrying guns. Deputy Division Commander Lin blocked the operating room door. Comrade Sue, if you sign the divorce papers now, there might still be time to sign your ancestors. Zoe Sue threw the banknotes in his face. This is my body-selling money. Is it enough to buy one of his legs? A nurse rushed over holding a bag of plasma. The patient needs a blood transfusion. Zoe Sue rolled up her sleeve, revealing bruised veins. Take mine. Back when we were suppressing bandits, he took a bullet for me. It's time to pay him back. The moment the needle pierced her skin. Memories flooded back like a torrent. On their wedding night, Theo Wang had washed her feet, saying a wife with calluses on her soles would bring her husband good fortune. When she had a miscarriage, he knelt outside the operating room, the front of his military uniform torn to shreds by her nails. Every morning before a mission, he would always hide the tenderest fried egg at the bottom of her rice bowl. Blood pressure stabilized. The nurse's cheer snapped her awake. Zoe Sue leaned against the wall and shuffled to the observation room, where she saw Theo Wang through the glass, his body covered with tubes. The green light of the ECG monitor flickered, like the beat she used to keep during performances in the cultural troupe. Mila Lin emerged from nowhere. The apple-green hem of her skirt stained with blood. My dad said, "To hell with your dad." Zoe Sue grabbed her by the hair and slammed her against the wall. "If you dare lay a hand on my man again, I'll pluck every strand of your hair and knit a sweater with it." Theo Wang woke up at dusk 3 days later. Zoe Sue was wiping his body with a towel, and when it brushed over the scar on his chest, he grabbed her wrist. "Wife, who's your wife?" Zoe Sue shook off his hand. "I've signed the divorce papers." Theo Wang fumbled under the pillow and pulled out a metal box, a bullet casing wrapped in blood-stained bandages. "I'll trade this for it." "Okay, trade your head." Zoe Sue threw the metal box at the window, the shattering glass startling the sparrows in the tree. Theo Wang suddenly rolled out of bed, dragging his lame leg as he crawled outside. "I'll go get it." "Theo Wang." Zoe Sue cried as she hugged him. "I don't want anything anymore. I don't want anything at all." The setting sun cast their shadows on the wall, like a faded paper cut. Theo Wang felt her wrist and found it bare. "Where's the bracelet?" "Pawned it." Zoe Sue buried her face in the crook of his neck, traded it for a crippled man. What a terrible deal. As the cicadas' chirping gradually faded, the cultural troops truck drove into the compound. Mila Lin was sobbing as she held her bedding roll. Her father's transfer order had been replaced with a discharge notice. Zoe Sue stepped on the sewing machine pedal as she altered Theo Wang's pants, needing to take in the right leg by an inch. "Darling," Theo Wang hobbled over on his crutches. "The higher-ups have approved the request for me to bring my family along with the army. I'm not going." Zoe Sue bit off the thread. "I'll just stay here and alter your pants for the rest of my life." Theo Wang suddenly pulled out a little red booklet from behind his back, its cover embossed with a golden double happiness character. "Then shall we get our marriage certificate renewed first?" Zoe Sue noticed the issuance date was today, and the ink wasn't even fully dry yet. "Theo Wang, you pulled strings again. Go through the front door." Theo Wang pointed to his chest. "The door here is always open for you." When dusk died, the military uniform on the clothesline read. Zoe Sue found a surprise at the bottom of the camphorwood chest, her mother's silver bracelet lying there safely, with a pawn ticket and a brand new bankbook pressed beneath it. Theo Wang's handwriting pierced through the paper. "Wife fund." When the night rain came again, Theo Wang said to Zoe Sue while washing her feet, "When your leg is better, I'll take you to take golden anniversary photos." "Pa." Zoe Sue splashed water in his face. "Let's live to see our golden anniversary first." The radio was playing "The Glory Stained with Blood." When Theo Wang suddenly began humming an out-of-tune melody, it took Zoe Sue a while to realize it was Ode to the Red Plum, the song he had sung from the top of a jeep during that year's heavy rainstorm. The bullet casing on the windowsill had sprouted. The wildflower seeds Zoe Sue had planted were showing green tips. As she touched the scar on Theo Wang's leg, she remembered the words of Dr. Liu, the military medic at the clinic. The shrapnel has been completely removed, but when it's cloudy or rainy, does it hurt? It won't hurt if you blow on it. As the rain gradually subsided, Zoe Sue found a note in the sewing machine drawer. Theo Wang's messy, scrawled handwriting read, "In the next life, I'll still alter your pants for you." She laughed until tears streamed down her face, dampening the freshly altered military uniform. On New Year's Eve in 1999, the military compound's loudspeakers softly played The Story of Spring. Zoe Sue worked the Butterfly brand sewing machine, altering her granddaughter's cotton-padded jacket, her gold bracelet clinking against the tabletop. Theo Wang leaned in with his jujube wood cane, two faded 5-point stars pinned to the collar of his military uniform. "Grandpa," the little girl rushed into his arms, holding up a bullet casing. "Can this be traded for candy?" "It can buy half a lifetime of your grandmother's time." Theo Wang threaded the bullet casing back onto the red string and slipped it onto Zoe Sue's wrist. The gold bracelet clinked against the bullet casing, sounding just like the cymbals from the Army's cultural troupe in their youth. When the firecrackers exploded, Zoe Sue added firewood to the stove pit. The flames illuminated the golden wedding photo on the wall, taken with a seagull camera. It was blurry, making it look as if it were immersed in morning mist. Beneath the photo lay a yellowed divorce certificate, cut into 2 pieces and used to prop up the table legs. "Old Chief," a car horn sounded outside. "The Spring Festival Gala is about to air your documentary." Theo Wang stuffed a hot water bottle into his military coat. "Not going. I'm staying to make dumplings with the old lady." "Who cares?" Zoe Sue banged the rolling pin loudly. "You were the one with the fakest smile when we took our wedding photos." Before she could finish her sentence, a loud military bugle sounded from the television. In the documentary, 20-year-old Theo Wang dashed through the barbed wire, bullets whizzing past his ears. Zoe Sue suddenly pointed at the screen. "Isn't that the knee pads you sewed?" Theo Wang said as he added some sweet and sour cabbage to her bowl. "You secretly tucked them in when you altered my pants." As the dumplings boiled and tumbled in the pot, Zoe Sue gazed out the window at the newly built residential buildings. The small, leaky house from back then had long been demolished, but the camphorwood chest was still sitting on the balcony. Inside it were locked a broken-toothed comb, a melted gold ring, and 17 undelivered divorce reports. When the Spring Festival Gala reached the song "Unforgettable Tonight," Theo Wang suddenly pulled out a tin box. Zoe Sue opened it and saw half a walnut cookie, now covered in green mold. It was the dry ration she had chased after the truck to give him when he enlisted in the army in 1976. Wasteful old man. Zoe Sue pretended to hit him, but he grabbed her wrist. The calluses from the gun rubbed against her wrinkles, with the same strength as when they had pulled their marriage certificate all those years ago. The medals sent by the military district jingled in the drawer. Theo Wang had given them all to his granddaughter to use as a rattle. Only the wind chime made of bullet casings hung by the window, which, when rained on, would emit a coppery rust smell, much like that era of blood and fire. On the 15th day of the first lunar month, snow fell against the lanterns. Theo Wang lay on the white sheets of the military hospital. The waves on the electrocardiogram grew flatter and flatter. Zoe Sue pressed her ear to his chest. "Didn't you promise to alter my pants for a lifetime, next life?" Theo Wang hooked his finger around a strand of her hair. "I'll alter your dress." The bullet shell wind chimes suddenly jingled, and Zoe Sue looked up to see the morning star outside the window. Theo Wang's breath gradually melted into the morning mist, the red string on his wrist still entwined with 2 strands of white hair. At the memorial service, the younger generation wanted to remove the 5-point star from his collar. Zoe Sue raised her cane and blocked the way before the coffin. "This is my dowry." The following Qingming festival, new recruits always saw an old lady sitting under the wall of honor. At her feet was a tin box filled with white rabbit candies, and she would hand them out to anyone she met. "My Theo has a sweet tooth." Zoe Sue passed away that year on Jingzhi. While sorting through her belongings, her daughter found a bright red wedding dress at the bottom of a camphorwood chest, the mandarin ducks embroidered with gold thread still vibrant. Tucked inside the collar was a note, the clumsy handwriting blurred by time. Zoe, in our next life, let's still live in the military compound, and I'll alter 100 dresses for you. Outside the window, the spring rain drizzled, and the bullet shell wind chimes gently swayed. 2 red star badges nestled together inside the glass case, just like the twin lotus flowers on our marriage certificate back in the day.